and welcome to the second part of this tutorial. Today I'll be showing you how to improve our RSS reader, which you can see here. That's where we left off. I'll be adding a reload button here and a menu button which would reveal various feeds here. I'll also be changing the main view inside the repeater widget from 2 text widgets to only 1 HTML widget. Since there are some HTML elements present, and we'd also in different feeds would like to show the user images. Okay, let's get started with the button up here. We'll create 2 of them, and let's label our tab bar with tab bar. And inside of this we'll add a button before the text widget, before the RSS reader, since I'd like to keep my code chronologically ordered. So let's add a button here with the property style glossy and the property width of 60. Now let's define the height of the button. About 32 is okay, I guess. The text will first add the menu, so menu. The font is Helvetica. And the size will be 13 pixels. We'll also define the widget as a floating widget inside of the tab bar, so we can absolutely position it exactly how we want it to. So property name, horizontal, vertical alignment, right, middle, and horizontal alignment, left. The property horizontal alignment will be left, and since we don't want the button to stick to the left part of the screen, we'll add a bit of padding to the left. So left padding will be 3, and we'll also add a background color to the widget up here, which will most likely define as blue. And the way you find hex colors in the web, you just type in Google hex colors, and the second search result actually gives you a nice range of colors here. So I'm choosing this color here, 4 threes and 2 Fs. Let's see by reloading the feed here. So now we've got a button here that says menu. I'd like to have the button a little bit of less of a distraction, so I'll change the color to a lighter shade of blue. So 22, 66, and C. Let's see how that will work out. So yeah, I kind of like this color, although it's not standard, so you would hire a designer to exactly tell you which color this is in hex. So I'm copying the button now and placing it after the text. And the only thing I'll have to change here is and I saw that I have 2 horizontal alignments, which I'll delete one of. I'll only have to, so on the second button, the refresh button, I'll change the horizontal alignment from left to right, and instead of left padding, I'll have right padding. And instead of menu, I'll say refresh. So now we suppose it have two buttons. So yes, so there are two buttons. And the advantage of the standard button inside the RFML Foundry, as opposed to text or image buttons, is that you can cancel touch events, which is rather convenient for the user, but not as nice to look at as for the custom designed button. Hopefully Red Foundry can add this in the future. So cancelling touch events, please note that down. So 65, I'll probably change the height, the width of the button now, and add a touch event to debug. So the first button, action, alert on touch, message, menu button touched. Let's not capitalize the T, and let's add an alert to the second button. This is actually a really neat way to debug the alert. So the message is you touched, you want to refresh. So let's reload the view, tap refresh, you want to refresh, okay, and menu button touched. Nice. So the first thing we'll start off by is to assign the appropriate refresh action to the repeater widget. But as you know, the repeater widget gets its data from the data provider, which we called RSS data. And it's located up here. But how do we refresh? The data provider wants its touch down here, so we'll add an action, refresh on touch, and it will already, the autocomplete one, if you've got autocomplete enabled, it will show you the XML data provider here that can be refreshed. So this is actually very useful, so you don't have to jump around inside the code. We'll also be adding a function on touch, and first of all, let's delete this, since I would like to show you why we would need a function. So first of all, let's reload this. And as you can see here, up here, there was a little refresh indicator that was showing us that the network was being used. So we can note down that our refresh button works. But once we scroll past the first item here in the repeater widget and hit refresh, we won't be taken back to the first item, where we would find that there's another post that was just loaded. So we would want the repeater widget to scroll to the first item once the refresh button is tapped, since it only there will be an item if something's reloaded. So let's add a function on touch with the widget ID. We have not yet defined the repeater widget, so we'll add an ID to this. RSS data repeater. Let's copy this ID here and add it up here. And let's add the function name. And I don't know it by heart, so I'll navigate to the developer forum. And as you can see, I'm already here. You would find it in reference, and then in the latest documentation, and inside the repeater here. But you could also find it in the RFML reference section of the new studio, so of the new Fusion. So you navigate to repeater and scroll right down to the bottom, and there are the functions here. However, this is a little bit incomplete here, since the function goToRow also has sub-functions or values that you can define within the function, which is animate, where you would tell the widget to show the scrolling once the refresh action is hit, and the row index, which we don't need, but we would need the animated. We'll change it to no. So go to -row. Then, as you would in the modify property modify action, you would define values, and the property here is animated. Let's keep it at yes and see what happens. So let's go back, refresh the whole view, scroll past here, and hit refresh. Okay, that didn't work. Let's try it again. Function name, goToRow, animated. Yes. Delete this. No. Okay, where's my mistake? Function on touch. Sorry for the interruption there, folks. I had to figure out how to call the function goToRow, and as it turns out, it's a little bit tricky to get just right. So where we left off is calling the refresh of the data provider, and now I'll also be showing you how to scroll to the first item once the refresh button is touched. And instead of adding a function to the button down here, I'll be adding a action to the data provider up here, and the action is a function on load finished, since we'll only want the data provider or the repeater to scroll to the first item once we have loaded the whole bit of, or the chunk of data. And as you notice down here, I've assigned an ID to the repeater, which I called RSS data repeater. Be sure to capitalize this correctly. Copy up here. Add the widget ID and RSS data repeater. I'll also be using the function name, and this can be found either in the RFML reference, which is a bit incomplete at the moment, since it won't show you the values of goToRow, which are necessary for this function to work, as it turns out. So you'll find the documentation, the full documentation, in resources, references of the developer section. Be sure to choose higher than 2.55 and higher. Scroll down to our widget called repeater, and scroll down to functions here. So we'd want to use go to row, we'd want the animated to be yes, and we'd want to also include row index. If you not include row index, it kind of won't work. So let's add go to row here and values. Animated, keep it at yes at the moment. And row index and use 0 for that as well. So let's see if we can refresh this. And once we start scrolling, hit refresh, and it's taken us back to the first item here, where you'd find the first post once something new is posted. So this is pretty good at the moment, but we'd also want to add a loading indicator, since the user won't see that the data is being reloaded and why he's taken back to the first item. So what we'll do is add a user widget, which is Jeremy's code from Red Foundry. He was kind enough to share it with us, and I've modified it slightly and put it into the code sharing section of the developer forum. Head over to the advanced RSS reader post and scroll down until you see loading popover user widget. You'd want to copy the whole thing and create a new view up here, calling it loading popover user indicator, and paste the contents of the file in there. However, I've already created something like that, and this is already predefined, and you would be able to modify the delay of and animation of each individual function, custom function in here. Okay, so everything's okay over here. So let's head over to tutorial and add the user widget. You'll find the user widget down here, just above the XML file here. And we'll copy it into the bottom section of our app. However, we'll also be commenting here, saying it's the loading indicator. The loading indicator. Paste. Be sure to keep this at the bottom section of your code, since it will most likely cause you some layout issues later on. And if you keep it at the bottom and declare the layout tab as float, it will always be above everything else inside that particular view. Now let's head up to the data provider. We'd want to call those functions to hide and to show the loading indicator. So what we'll do is we get the function on load started, and in the tutorial I've already been a bit further and showing the layout only, or the loading indicator, hiding the loading indicator only when the HTML widget is also finished loading. However, I will go through this step by step so you don't miss anything, and I'll grab the code that is in the HTML widget here on load finished and paste it up to the data provider so that we can modify it later on. Let's head over to the view here, and as you can see, once the view is reloaded, you'll be shown the loading indicator. So once you press refresh or tap refresh, is the loading indicator there, and everything in here should be up to speed with the post or the RSS feed online. Okay, so our next step is to change these two text widgets into one single HTML widget, since this is more compatible with anything else. So let's delete those two text widgets inside the repeater widget. Let's comment this as well. Shows items from the RSS feed. Delete the sub-widgets inside the repeater widget and add a HTML widget. Hold on, this is wrong. Add a layout widget. Since the latest, a couple of the latest versions of Viz will allow you to scroll inside of the widget, we would want the layout widget up here to encapsulate the HTML widget, and we would not define the height, and instead we'll set the HTML property to disallow scrolling. So this sounds pretty strange at the moment, but let's go for it step by step. First of all, I'll be adding the width property, since I'll be still using that. I'll be adding sub-widgets now, and the sub-widget is the only HTML widget. And a couple of folks are having trouble with the HTML widget not displaying any pictures or images. And I found out that if you have a style sheet inside the HTML widget, you'll see that everything should work fine. So here's the whole HTML content property of the HTML widget that should work with what we're trying to achieve. So add that. Disallow scrolling, so allow scroll no. Auto format no. Auto follow user links no. Open links externally yes, so that's defaulted. Hide activity indicator, that's good. Yes, we don't want to show the activity indicator. We'd want the height to be 100%, and we'd want the width to be 100% as well. So now we'd go through the CSS step by step and see if there's anything we'll need to change. As you can see, there's this session font, which will change to 16 or 15 pixels. We'll also delete the link here in the title, and there's the wrongly referenced string here from the title, which will also change to the appropriate RSS feed equivalent. So it's data row, brackets open, brackets closed, quotes, title. Let's copy that and change this part here to description, since this is what we want to show. And as you can see up here, there's no declaration for how the title should look like, and since it's already wrapped in a div tag, we will reference it by class. So title, squiggly brackets, font weight, set it to bold, font size, let's have it relative to the 615 pixels as 1.2 EM, and let's add a bit of padding to the bottom. And if you're coming from web design, you'll know that, and you'll notice that RFML uses the padding the opposite way around. So you in CSS you would use padding bottom, whereas in RFML you would use bottom padding. So padding bottom 10 pixels, and save that. Let's reload this piece of code here, this view. And as you can see, here we have the HTML widget being loaded with the HTML elements being encoded correctly. But let's choose a more or a richer feed. Engadget's feed is pretty nice for testing purposes. So you'll find it here in engadget.com/rss.xml, and as you can see here, the description is full of links, everything. Title is also encoded in CData tags. So let's change the design observer in the data location from the RSS data to our Engadget feed. Let's reload the view here. And as you can see, we cannot scroll somehow. So two things we'll need to change. First of all, we'll need to change the height of the HTML widget. Let's reload this, see if we can scroll now. Okay, now we can scroll. There is a bit of an issue when you hit the bottom. The data provider will somehow scroll, so we need to add some padding to the layout up here that encapsulates the HTML widget. So bottom padding 10, top, oh no, padding 10 as well. So let's reload this. Oh no, still doesn't work. How do I do this? Oh, okay, that's wrong. Let's log in again. So you'll notice two things. First of all, the image is stretched and the repeater widget scrolls whenever it wants to scroll. So I'd theoretically delete this layout widget here. Let's see if that works. Yeah, so that works up to a certain point. And I'll change the item height. I'll delete it here. Let's see if that works. No. So that doesn't work. So I'll add the layout back and assign the height 100%. So my mistake previously was to assign a height value to the HTML widget, which was wrong. So let's try this. Okay, now it's working. Okay, good. So now, as you can see, we can scroll up and down without being yanked across the screen. And let's scroll. Okay, that's good. As you can see here, the image widget is completely stretched. So what we'll do here is to change the height. The width. Let's try this. No. Okay, too big. So it was definitely the max. Let's display block, delete that. See if there are any image style components here. Let's see, image class label, image label. Okay, no, there are not any CSS rules for this image tag inside the RSS feed. But somehow we're having trouble with a stretched image. So let's delete the height here. Also not working. So is there, so I would just define if there's any semicolons missing. Okay, and now we're back, and I've learned something about CSS. So the first thing I've learned is not to overlook something, because I found out that the image contained inside the description of the Engadget feed contained inline CSS styles. So this caused the following problem. Images appeared to be stretched, and there was nothing I could change that we could do, that we could adjust. So what I saw on Google, what I found on Google, is that if you declare a property in CSS as exclamation important, it will override inline CSS. So what we'll do is we'll declare every property here. Let's change that to 100 as important. So copy that and that. Let's reload the feed, and everything should be displaying nicely, playing nicely with our feed. So that's good. So now we have images, and we have a refresh here as well, and we would want the refresh button, so the refresh icon here, to hide when the HTML widget is finished loading. So we'll assign an action to the HTML widget here, which we'll copy from up here. It's a function and a modify action. So on load finished, the popover indicator here, function on load finished and modify on load finished. Command X, paste it down here. So the loading indicator is hidden once the HTML widget has finished loading its contents. So let's try that. Good. Only one problem. There is a slight delay when the HTML widget is loaded or finished loading, and the loading indicator is hidden. So we'll change that to hide fast. So now, okay, that was quick. So we'll adjust the hide fast property or hide property of the user widget to minimize the delay here from 2 seconds to 1 second. Let's try that. Okay, no, that's not right. Okay, now I've locked myself out. Let's try this again. Okay. So, as you can see, once the refresh button is hit, the loading indicator will not call the HTML widget again because there's no data being loaded. So this is a bug, actually. So what we'd want to do is, when we call the data provider, we'd also want to refresh the on load started. We'd also want to refresh the, or load finished. We'd also want to refresh the HTML widget. So there's no declaration to this yet. So we'll add equals RSS data item. So now we can reference this from up here. And let's reload this. Still nothing. So that's a bad solution. Let's change back the function from down here to up there. So every time we hit the refresh button, we won't be encountering that bug. Reload. So as you can see, we've got one RSS feed item, we've got the refresh button working now, and we would like to now be able to switch between the RSS feeds, because that's what we'll do inside the RSS reader app. So once the user hits menu, the whole view will shift to the left, or to the right rather, and will reveal a list of buttons. So now what we'll do is we'll encapsulate the whole code we've just written, including the loading indicator. So let's start off with adding widgets, close brackets down at the bottom. So let's close the layout here and start it up here. Comment with main view, or rather slider view. Slider view, okay. Property name. Layout. Widgets. And we'd want to declare the layout with 100% width. Oh, sorry. So the height should be 100% as well. And I should mention, this is rather graphically, this is very intensive in terms of using up resources. So as you would call it, expensive. So layout type float, since we want it above the main view, and we'd want to call it a name, so slider view. Now when the user presses the menu widget, the whole view should shift to the right. So once it's shifted to the right and the user wants to get back without changing the RSS feed, there has to be a target area where the action that you invoke is to slide the view back. So 1 second. So what we'll do now is to create a separate layout that also floats above everything else. Layout type, float. And the only reason why we are creating this layout is to get the target action of sliding the view back. And the action is modify on touch slider view widget ID slider view values top left position to 0 in the duration of 0 seconds. Huh? No? 0.3 seconds. Okay, that's good. And from where we are now, we would like to disable it. So we set enabled to no. So the user won't see it, but it's there. And once we press the menu button, we'll enable this widget as well. So what we'll do is we'll create ID slider view overlay and copy the modify action here, since we'll use it when the user presses the menu button. So menu button is here. So once the user touches the menu button, the left position of the item should go to about 70%. So 70% here, and or wider, I don't know how much. 75, good. And we'd also want to enable the slider view overlay. Is yes. So let's save this and reload the view. So as you can see, I've made a mistake and I don't know what it is. I guess, if I had to guess, maybe the layout overlay is not invisible. Background color. So no, that's set it to invisible, so that's not my mistake. So the slider view, 100%. Oh, here we go. Property. I said property name equals property, so that should be width. So let's reload this area here. So those silly mistakes can haunt you. So let's navigate to this menu. Okay, good. Oh, so as you can see, the slider view didn't work this time. So so what did we do wrong? On the slider view overlay, height, width enabled, float, background color, and left position. We'd also have to disable the layout view, so we have to reference. So that's correct. The duration is set to enabled. Maybe disable here. So let's no, still nothing. But I can reload the view, so that's good. Menu. So that's where the layout overlay should kick in. Layout type, float, width, height, 100% enabled, yes. Slider view overlay, enabled, no. Modify and touch, yes. Left position, 0. Maybe the reason why it's not working is because we haven't defined it at the bottom, so that's my mistake. So let's put it below the loading indicator. And since we're floating every other widget above this piece of code, so let's reload the view. Press menu, and here we go. We have a slidable view. So two things now. We'll change the background color from the view to be black for now, and we'll also change the background color here to be white. So we've got that, and now you can see okay, so we've got that, and let's add the background to the view below the other view. Layout. So this is the static view. And this will be the view that is behind all the other views. So we'll assign the layout type as absolute. We'll also add widgets, and the first widget we'll add is the background. So property name, max height 100%. Oh no, max height 100%. No, and width 100%. I'm not quite sure about this values. I have to go back and check. So the image we're getting from is the background PNG, which is the tile view from here. So image is resources /bg.png. So let's see if we can rotate the view. And the view works fine. So as you can see, the whole layout bit here also works with the view rotated in landscape. So let's rotate the back and rotate it back. So rotate right. And what we'll do is we'll also be creating a small shadow bit here. And this is a little trick. So instead of having a shadow here the whole way and animated through, we'll be adding a shadow right to the destination, so it will look like so we'll give it a bit of depth. So first of all, we'll disallow horizontal bit down here, and as you can see, I've just refreshed. The refresh action still works. I wasn't entirely sure the last time, so that's it, works. That's good. Menu, sliding action. Good. So now I'll be adding the shadow. What I'll do is I'll declare the background. I'll declare the background as being absolute as well. And I'll copy this piece of code here. And the width is, let's see, shadow vertical. How high is this? 10 pixels, and the width is 7 pixels. So we'll keep the width at 4 pixels for now, and the height as 100%, and we'll allow stretch. We'll change the reference to shadow vertical, and we'll also declare the left position as 74, since we have declared the slider view to stop at 75. So let's see if that works. No, not yet. Let's do 73. Oh no, the layout tab is float, not absolute. Reload the view. As you can see, there is a slight gap here, so 74 was sufficient. And as you can see, there's a very slight shadow here, but I'll be increasing the width of this shadow to 7, and hence I'll be adding the left position to 73. So let's see how it looks. And as you can see, there's a nice shadow here, and it gives us a bit of depth to the slider view without having much impact on performance. Okay. So that's a little trick you now know. So let's start by adding a menu here. We'll first add the data provider. And since we're loading the XML string locally, we'll have just data, and we'll hide activity indicator just in case, and allow cache. I'm not sure if that does anything. I hope it improves performance, but it should it should be pretty quick anyways. So let's go back to the code sharing section of the forum, and in there, advanced RSS reader, I have a data provider that has a bit of data in it. So encapsulated in C data tags. Be sure to grab everything. It's pretty long, and let's copy that. And paste it up here. And once you save it, it should work fine, since we didn't change anything. So we don't need any loading for this, but we will need a repeater widget to show a selection of the feeds inside the static view. So in here we'll have a repeater widget. Let's look for 1 second. I want to check how far I have modified the action in the demo, just to see, because I've so so the left position is 80, so we'll use 80 on this example as well, because it gives us a nice bit of width without sacrificing the ability of the user to scroll, tap on the action area on the right hand side. So let's adjust the value of the menu button here and adjust the width, the left position of the shadow, to 78, so minus 2%. Let's see if that works. So that's good. So now I'll be adding the repeater widget to the view. Row data ID, which is probably a good idea to call this something ID equals RSS feeds. Copy this and paste into here. Row data path RSS. No, we'll have to see menu items and then item. Let's declare the height as 100% and the width as 85% now. For now, let's see if this works. I'm currently trying to hide the scroll bar, so auto load yes, animate new rows no, fade rows no, item height, let's try 30 pixels, and item width we'll not be changing that for now. Let's add subwidget. The only subwidget we'll need is, so we'll need 2 subwidgets here actually. 3 subwidgets. So one layout, then the property name is 100%. Property name width 100%. Height as 100% as well, of the 75%, and the background color as a little bit of white, F and 01. Let's try that. So that sets the opacity or the alpha. And now let's add, define the repeater widget, and now I'll define a text widget as a text inside the repeater, and I'll be choosing the font as Helvetica. Bold, 18 pixels. The color will be white, and there's something that shouldn't be there. The text should be pulled from the row, from the data row, called name. So let's reload and see if it works. So nothing here yet. Somehow I've mixed something up. RSS feeds. Auto load is defaulted as well. So maybe the separator color. Okay, sorry for that ring there. I'll define the separator color here and see if I can debug this. So there's the separator color, and as you can see there is no scrolling, which is very nice. So what I'll do is I'll change the separator color to a lighter shade of gray, increase the item height to 50, and see if I can. So this is a bit too much, I guess, I don't know. Add a header padding of 50. Does this look wrong to you? Okay, data row. I spelled data wrong. So let's see if it works now. Okay, nice. So we've got this view here, and add a bit of header padding there of 75. Decrease the item height and have a bit of padding to the left of this. And as a bonus, disable the animation. So animate touch, no. Background color, change a bit to 3 maybe. Maybe we'll see something then. And the padding to the left, so left padding 20, 10, and we would want to float this as well, since we would like to vertically align this in the middle, this text. Decrease the item height to 40. So that's 5 pixels from the bottom and 5 pixels from the top. Let's see how this looks. Okay, this looks okay. Increase the header padding to 75. I've got this. And see if we can bring a bit of the white background, maybe to show us, show you. So same. So this is inspired by the Twitter client. So as you can see, there is a bit of a light shade of white across this view here, and I'll increase the size of the cell. So in the individual, the item height, I'll increase again to 50. Let's see how this looks. Okay, that's good. But one thing you'll notice in every other app, or in Apple's own apps, is that they use a special type of engraving. So for text, there is a little bit of a black shadow here, there, and the menu buttons as well. And unfortunately, drawing the shadows is rather expensive in Red Foundry, and I don't know any particular way to enable this effect in, let's say, Red Foundry without using pictures, which is a bit sad, and I hope we can improve this in the future or somehow. But for now, I've found out that if you add a little bit of image so if you I'll use a horizontal user widget, horizontal rule to emulate this effect on this list here. So one bit I'll change is the header padding. Set it to 100 first of all, and decrease, so lighten the separate the color. I'll now be adding a horizontal rule widget to the top. Horizontal rule, property name width 100%. The height should be 1 pixel, 1 point. Color. For now, let's try a dark shade of gray in comparison. So 666, 666, and float this widget. And that's it. Let's try this. So as you can see, this is not really giving us the desired effect. The separator color here is too light. So now let's add 999 and add just to here. So as you can see, this is now an effect whereby the separator color is still too light. So let's add 777 and change the horizontal rule to a darker shade of gray 444. Okay, so let's reload this. Now this is not really what we're after, but I've already played with this, so let's see how I did this in the other in the normal. So the separator color is very dark gray in the tutorial, and the ruler widget is a lighter shadow, so that change it here. Let's see if that works. Okay, yeah, so that looks fine. Yeah, that looks good. So let's assign the action that the widget is once you tap on a feed, you're taken to this feed. So let's start off with assigning an action to this, and one of the actions is to change the slide view, so the same as the overlay, to bring back the slide view. Down here. And another part of the action is to modify the data provider. So let's find our way back here and then modify on touch a data source ID. We want to modify the RSS data, and what we'd want to modify is the data location, and we'd want to use the XPath of the URL. So let's see up here, its name, description is empty, I guess, submit to, and there's the URL. So let's add submit to URL and reload this feed here. So now we have Engadget up here, and let's menu. Okay, let's see Gizmodo. Okay, now we're taken back and everything's reloaded, and we have Gizmodo here as well. So, however, we want to modify this heading here to reflect what we're reading. So instead of RSS reader, we want to show that we're reading the Gizmodo or TechCrunch feed. Let's see if this works. Okay, good. So let's modify on touch as well. Widget ID. We have not yet assigned an ID to the title, so we'll use RSS title for this as a placeholder. And we want to assign the text to the from the name to the title. So let's check the name, take the ID, plug it into the tab bar here. So the layout text is here, ID equals that name, and the first RSS feed we're actually reading is Engadget, so Engadget. So let's reload this here. So this is Engadget, we're reading Engadget, but we'd like to switch to Mac Stories, one of my favorite blogs. So now we've switched to Mac Stories, and Mac Stories is up here as well. TechCrunch, Design Observer. Good. And now let's hit refresh again, just to test. Okay, so now we have this part of the tutorial finished, but we'll also, as a bonus, I'll also now show you how to integrate ClearRead into your app. And I'll not be coding it from scratch, so I'll just be copying parts of the tutorial. So once you have it here, you take ClearRead API, and from the code sharing section into the data sources here. So once you've copied that, you are going to be changing the HTML content, since we would not want to overwrite the entire bit of our app, to the XPath of the description and the title. Let's data row ClearRead API, and let's open something here. So the structure of the response of the ClearRead API is RSS, channel, item, and then there's title. So same as an RSS feed, but with a little bit of addition. So title and description, we'd want those two. So RSS, channel, item, title, and let's copy that here, since we only need to change the description at the end. Okay, so we've copied that, pasted that, and so this is on the popover indicator, so we'd also want to hide the indicator when the load is finished, the loading indicator. And now we need a separate button to call ClearRead API. So below our repeater widget, I have, let's see, what do we have here? Floating action container. That's not it. But this is it, ClearRead API. Let's copy that bit here. And let's just paste it down here. And without trying, so the image we're using for ClearRead API is icon glasses here, which I've already uploaded. So let's reload this view here. So as you can see, ClearRead API. Let's change the feed to Mac Stories, since I saw that it was using feeds that were not full text. So let's tap this here. And nothing has happened yet. Maybe because I have done something wrong up here. Modify. Oh, so the it's referencing the wrong HTML widget, or the HTML widget is not declared yet. I have to check. So it's called ID equals RSS HTML widget. Let's copy that. and paste it up here instead of feed content. And let's reload this here. Mac stories. Okay, so now it's empty. That's better than before, but still not great. So let's see if we can find the error. Clear read API. Copy that. RSS channel item title. RSS channel item description. So that's demo this here. So demo works, so I would not understand. Maybe there has to be something wrong with how I'm referencing ClearRead API. So I'm submitting session URL. Oh, so this is wrong. So this is entirely wrong. Since session URL is empty, I'll have to put the ClearRead API inside of the repeater widget. So this will also show the repeater widget once. So completely my fault here. So let's reload this and data row link, and everything has to be set first, and then it has to be loaded second. So let's remove demo up here. So let's reload this. Let's go to the Mac Stories feed. So see, the ClearRead scrolls with us. And now Mac Stories whole article is loaded without any clutter inside the feed here. And once I scroll across, and I'll see the ClearRead symbol down here.